Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olabi Adeniran, and welcome to today's live coding session. As stated from the announcements, we shall be taking the stage one of the deployment of a machine learning model, using Flask and standard HTML tools. So basically, the first part will be developing locally, while the second part will be moving from your local environment to a development environment on the cloud. So basically what we are going to be doing today is transitioning from a Jupyter notebook or any notebook of your choice for which you use to code, transitioning from a notebook to the web, how to serve models online. So I'm going to share my screen now, and this is my so before I proceed, I don't know if someone can help me confirm if you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, please help me confirm.
Yes, you can.
So I'm going to stop my video now to have better connection. So basically today what we are trying to showcase is the moving of the movement. That's when you transition from a local notebook to web platform where you can like make your model available to people for to use it basically. So after developing your model and working with it on your notebooks, training it, and getting your inference from the model, you need to have a way for which it is publicly available to people so they can use it. So the easiest way, the easiest way to do this is basically to use Python, to use a Python backend. So I won't be showing the previous stage of training and training the model and the likes because I don't think that's not part of our criteria today. But what I'll just be giving you is an info on what the model does. So basically, the model is a model that helps to predict. It helps to predict the score of a university, basically. So given a set of features, the model helps to the model it has found a pattern. Don't let me say it helps. It has found a pattern exactly between these features, and with that, it is able to return a score for a university. So let's say, for example, you are working for a company that is dealing in education, and they have requested this model where they want their students. Let's say it's a company that teaches people, or it's a company that works on getting scholarship for students or admission for students. So they want a model that is able to help their clients, students in this case, to select the university that they want to go to. So let's say they want to give it some scores and a set of features. And from there, it will give them the score of that university. And then the student can, from the score that they have gotten, decide if they want to attend that university or if they would like to predict for another one. So basically, this is my Visual Studio notebook that contains everything that we shall be using. But we are just going to be treating some files today. We are going to be treating the files that are in templates. We are also going to be working with this file. This is the final model. And we're also going to be working with the main.py file. You can see the main.py file. So basically, the backend module that we're going to be using for our tasks is Flask. So Flask is a Python module, basically the way sklearn, pandas, and tables, the way all of them work. They are Python modules that we use for web development, basically. So they are basically used for projects where you need to make endpoints, like navigating a website. So when they say web building, basically, Flask is one of the very popular tools that they use. So, and for using flags, there's a blueprint for which one uses it. A blueprint in the sense that if one goes to the documentation site of Flask, one can just see that there's a blueprint for how you want to use basically everything that you want to do. So we can see that I've imported Flask, request, render template, session, blah, 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 blah. So the first thing I'll be showing you is the index.html. So most everyone here should be familiar with HTML. Even if you're not familiar with it, you should have heard about it one time or the other. HTML, the full meaning, hypertext markup language, is basically not a coding language per se. It's a text language that helps us to render text on the web. So HTML is the standard tool that we use to what? The standard tool that we use to pass, that we use to create web pages, that we used to show information, that they call it the front end side. So HTML is the building block of the front end side. So I won't really go into much of the HTML parts because you cannot do everything about HTML, but I'll just be showing you some things about our model. Remember I said, what does our model do? Number one, our model predicts the overall score for a university, basically. So this is the overall score for the university, and we are going to be using what we call what form. So HTML, the way HTML works is that it deals with tags. So in every, when you are trying to type an HTML, when you are creating an HTML page, it uses tags. It is tags that tells you that, okay, after this tag, the next lines, this is what belongs to this tag, and then you close the tag. So basically, the standard blueprint for creating HTML file, we have the head, the title, blah blah blah, and the body. We have the heading one, which I'll see all of this shortly. We have the heading one, which is the overall score for the university. We have so the first tag we are using here is called what? A form. And the form is a standard way. If you have not really done anything with HTML, if you go to W3 schools, W3 schools are the official body in charge of HTML, and there's a documentation for everything that you want to do. So for every form you create in HTML, it needs to have an action. An action is that, okay, for this form, this is what I want you to do after the ending of this form. You know, for every form you fill a form, it is meant to be submitted basically. So you are trying to tell you that when the form is submitted, this is what I want. I'll leave this for now and I'll not get into it. I'll come and explain it later. So we also have a method. So we're also saying that, okay, I want you to perform this action, and this is the method with which I want you to perform this action. So our method is the post action, and our action that are performing is the URL for prediction, basically. And now we now start listing what the different things that are in that action. So each thing that we're going to list in this action corresponds to what each column of the data set that was used to what train the data. So basically, this is like trying to show the, let's say, the ending parts. You guys have worked on teams before, so most teams probably did a deployment, and this should not be new to some of them. But basically, we are just saying that the workflow from getting your data, training it, passing it into a pipeline, then getting to the final state. So this is the transition that happens after the model has been trained fully to make it what available to the public. So you need to know what you need to have a insider knowledge of what was used to train the model, so you can be able to work on a file like this for you to be able to successfully complete something like this. So if there's no insider knowledge, you want to know that, okay, these are the features that I need to add and stuff. So basically, our first feature is the classification size, which is what the size of the institution. Basically, we have extra large, medium, small. The next one is the the classification focus. There are many things there that I won't really be getting into, but you can just like get into it later and just research on it. This is not really the main topic. I just have to show it to you guys. So you can also see this one. Label 4 is research intensity. We also have, so these are basically the columns. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, which ends as status, these are the categorical columns. You can see that the values are very high, medium, low, ABC, basically. Those are the words, categorical columns of the data set. And we also have the words, the numeric columns. So the numeric columns of the data set are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a total of 10 columns, basically. Why 4 are categorical and these are numerical. And you can see that at the end of everything, we have something called what submit. So remember I told you that a form is going to be submitted. So the submit button is what handles the submission of the form, so that the action that you have decided for you to perform will now be performed. And then I now have a logic here. This logic here, you can see people that are familiar with programming language will see that this is a little bit akin to programming. This is the use of logic. Normally in HTML, as I will show you soon also, logic does not work for HTML. So if you can see this looks like me setting an if clause. I'm saying if prediction. So I'm trying to say that if there's something called prediction, or another way to say that if prediction is equals to true, basically, then write out this. The p tag is just you saying that just write this out in standard text. So if prediction, the standard text will be what's written out, and then we have the closing and the end of the file, and basically that's everything about the HTML file. So I'm going to open up this HTML file so that you begin to see the difference between okay, I'm going to open it up and show it to you on this page now. Okay, I'll need to have a new share of my screen, and I want to show you this page exactly. So can you just confirm if the screen has changed from Visual Studio Code to the current page that I'm showing, maybe with the chat or the vocal confirmation?
Yes, you can see.
So you can see now that this is our title, predicting overall score for university. The categorical column that I told you about are here. The categorical column that I told you about are here. This is another categorical column, this, and we have what? These are all numerical columns, and then we have submit. But then you begin to see something now. You see that this is just rendered as text also. You see that if prediction blah 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 is just written. Why? Because HTML does not understand what it means to have logic. HTML does not understand what it means to have logic. What it just does for you is it writes out everything that is in the file, basically. So this is me opening this HTML file on my local system. So now let us go back to Visual Studio Code, where we now start to see the beauty of Flask and Python, basically. So that's all on the HTML file. If you now come to main.py, which is the Python file where I've written on my code, the first thing we do, this is like a general blueprint for deploying using Flask. Basically, when you're working on personal projects, Flask is always the best thing to use. Sorry for that, because Flask is easy to work with than other popular big time web development framework for Python. Flask is one of the easiest to use, and it has been built. It's one of the most recent, so it has worked on a lot of setbacks that previous frameworks and previous modules have. So Flask is very easy to use, and even a newbie or anything that understands Python can work with it. So the first thing we do is to what? We set app to be what? Flask name. So this is basically just telling Flask, the Flask to recognize that this module that I'm working with is the main module for the web, that this is the main. Sometimes you can decide not to use the name, you can decide to use the name of the folder and stuff like that. But when it's a simple project like this, we use the name of the file. So you have something called a secret key. The secret key is what you use for debugging and all. The secret key helps you to, this is what is like a way for you to set a security that when your model is live and it runs into error, it does not just allow anybody into. It's only people that have the secret key that can have access to the backend of the model. So the first thing I'm doing here is what? I'm saying this with open file model.pickle rb as f, model equals to pickle.load. So basically, you can see this file here called the final model of PQ. This was done in the notebook. I don't know if I can show you the notebook. The notebook is quite long, so opening it might cause some error. But basically, I'm using this module called Pickle. And what Pickle does, Pickle is an object that does serialization or deserialization. So Pickle is one of the easiest way for you to save objects in Python. So when you are working on Python code, you want to save a list, you want to save things, most times you can save it to a file or you can save it as text, but there are some things, let's say for example, a Python list now, there is no easy way for you to save a Python list. So the best way for you to do is you can just pick that Python list or that Python object and save it in a Pickle file. And what serialization does is that it gives you that reference, the way the file is structured in your code. That's how it is structured in the Pickle file. So when you unpickle it, when you deserialize it, you have your file intact, just the way you left it. So that's what the first thing we are doing. So we have pickled our model object that has been trained and what's verified and validated. So this is our trained model that we now pickled into a file. So the trained model that was pickled is now what we are unpickling. That's the first step. So we now have our model in our hand without having to refer to the notebook or anything. That's the first step. And then we find these are called what blueprint method. Basically, they are just trying to like decorate this method. I can't really get into the basis of what decorator is, but it's just a way for you to say that okay, this is using a blueprint that has been defined somewhere before. You know that we have defined app. So at app.route, this is just like you trying to say that when you see that I'm using slash and slash home. So for you to go to a website and type, for example, when you go to a website and type www.facebook.com, it takes you to the same place as if you write, say, www.facebook.com/home, or if you write just google.com and google.com/home, basically. So this is a way for you to say that, okay, this text that will be typed into the web browser after the domain name, all of them should route you to a particular place, and this is the page that they should take you into. So I'm routing the slash, that if I type just the domain name, I'm also slashing a home. So in case someone decides to use the name of the website /home, this is another thing I'm saying that I should bring it, and you should render what? The templates. So render template is a function that has been implemented by Flask. I cannot go into the details, but what it just does is that it just shows you, it brings to you what the HTML file that was passed through it, basically. So we have defined our HTML file, and this is it. So render templates will only work with files that are in a folder called templates. So anytime you are working with Flask, you need to have every file that you want to render, they need to be in the folder called templates. If not, it will report an error that it cannot find the file that you are passing to it. So that's the first thing. And then I'm routing another page here. So this is the page of the prediction. Remember, our index.html is the only page I've spoken about. So I'm routing a prediction. Why this is a method? So methods, post and get, are basically API. They are standard techniques for web surfing. Post method, get method. So get method, you use it to it's basically when you use to get like images and all. Why post method I used to send information to a web page, basically. So a post method, you can give it information that send this to the web page. The get method basically is to like return response from the web page. But you can also use the get method to pass information. There are still details about that, but that is another topic that is wide on its own. But basically, we are using the home method can take both get and post requests, while the prediction will only get what post requests. So this is the logic that we are using. So what we are doing is that when we get our action, if you can see now, this is called what? Prediction. So after each routing, we define something, we define a function under it. You can see that this function is called prediction. Now you now see the benefit of this stuff here. You see URL for prediction. So basically what I'm trying to say is that when you submit this, I want it to pass, I also told you that post is used to send information. So I want it to pass all of this information that has been filled in the form, pass it to a URL. And the URL you're going to pass it is the URL for prediction. So this is the work of what? This is the work of Flask and Python in the HTML. You know, if you remember correctly, I don't think I showed you, but this also would have been rendered, this would not have shown actually because it's a backend, it's part of the tag. But HTML does not also recognize this. So if I had pressed submit at that point, nothing would have happened actually. But this is a way for you to also use Flask. That when you want to perform a action, that you want a function basically that you have in your main Python file, you want it to perform the action for a web page or that is inside the HTML file basically. You use something, this thing is called URL4. So URL4 and the name of the function. So basically, so our function is going to pass into this URL4 position. You also see that the method it is receiving. So we are telling that it's going to receive a post method, and you see that in this, you are telling that send this with a post method also. So they have to correspond. You cannot say you should only receive post method and then you now send your form with a get method. You have an error. So these are the CHT post method. Basically, data are included in the form. So I'm back to this page. So what we are doing is that the first thing we do is we get our form. So you know, I imported something called request. So request is a module that helps us to work with web browsers that get things like forms, get things like fields, basically everything that someone has filled on the web page. That's what request does. Request is the module that we use to get it. So this is request as a module is on its own. But Flask has modified the request that can work for it, that is optimized for Flask. That's why I imported request from Flask. So you use request.form. So you're telling that the place you want to get information from is a form. Let's say, for example, apart from a form, you also have another thing. I can't really come. Let's say another thing called the box. You can say request.box or request.button, stuff like that. That is what gets you the information. And then you can now perform. So these are just like standard things that, depending on your use case, you know what you want to use it for. You can either use a dot to list or to dot dict to string. Basically, you are the one. It depends on how your model is structured and how your form is structured. That's what you know what you want to do basically. And when you go to the documentation page for all of these modules, you will see a full explanation on how to use it. So I'm going to get mine as a dictionary. So after accessing the form request, I'm going to say to dict. To dict does what? It helps me convert every value that is in the response. It converts it to a dictionary where the key is the name of the the name of the classification label, exactly label for classification or the select ID. That this will be the key. You can see that the label and the select ID, I made them the same thing. So any of this can be the key, but basically the select ID is mostly used if you don't provide this. Then this is used as the key, and the value corresponds to whatever the person chooses from this option. While for these ones, the numerical ones that are not option, the label, the input type is used, the number ID. You get, so the ID is be the key, and the value will be whatever the person inputs inside the box that is beside it, basically. So I'm going to do all those and turn it to a dictionary. That's the first step. So I'm using this to this print is just going to print it out to confirm that what I'm doing is correct. That okay, I've corrected is for debugging purposes and all, to show that I have collected the features that I need correctly. And then I'm not going to do what? I'm not going to create a pandas data frame. You will, or don't let me generalize. Most people will be familiar with pandas because pandas is the standard way that we work with tables and data sets that comma separated or that are tabular in a way. So pandas is what we use to work on them. And then I create a pandas data frame from that feature list that the dictionary that I've gotten. The reason why this is important is because if you don't provide this, one of your key value will be made the index, you get, or it gives it an index of 0 basically. So the best way to do this is I just create the feature list and I do what? I give it an index that the index is what? Index 1. So instead of making the index 0, make the index 1. And then I just predict the final. So if this was a standard training and something model, you have questions on Why am I just passing in? Because you can see that I'm getting string values. Let me just say text values also. You get, you ask that why am I passing in? It's because in the back end of our training of the model, what we said was not just a model, we actually saved the pipeline. So in the pipeline, we already have a column transformer for the categorical objects that deals with what? All the columns that are what? That are categorical. So that is why I also had to name those labels. So it deals, because the way this will create the dictionary is that the column you get will be the key name, while the row, like the value, it will be like the title of that column will be the key, and the value will be the what? The value. If you get what I'm trying to say, it's just like basic stuff. So as I was saying, our model, this model that I'm picking in here, it was not actually only a model that was saved, it was actually a pipeline that was saved, and the pipeline contains both the model and the column transformer. That is why I can just say model.predict final, you get, and if I just say model.predict final, it will be able to work. In other cases, you have to like first do column transformation and all, but that's the essence of saying that this is the last step. You have done all those before, you're just making it publicly available. So I will also print the prediction to get that I have a prediction, and then I'll render the template index.html. And you now see that now, at first when I was running templates, there was no comma, but now there's a comma and I'm passing something called prediction to it. This will take you back to what HTML could not understand then. What I said was a logic. This part here that I said is a logic. So if prediction, what this does now is that when I run this and pass, when I say press the submit button and this is being run, it will also, when it is rendering the template, it will now pass a variable called prediction into the file, and then that will now set this place to be what? This place will be true, and when this place is true, it will now what? Print this out. But you can see that when we did it in the HTML file, it just printed out this whole block. Why? Because HTML does not understand logic. So that's basically everything that is about there. And the last thing, this part here, is just standard methodology for running of stuff. This might, let's say for example, this is not your final file. You are also going to like import this file in another place. So because you don't want all of this to run immediately when you are importing, you use this. So what this does is that when you run this as the main file, that is when your code begins to run. You see, I said that if name equals name, that's when I have app.run. So if I eventually I'm importing this into another file, because name will not be main and this will be false, then app.run would not work. So basically that is, you see, this is just the like basic steps. For a model that is larger, there might need to be, or let's say, for example, if you had saved just the model without the pipeline, then we might have to do the logic of what? Transforming those columns in this Python file also. But to make it easier, those have been done already before. We are just getting the pipeline down. We can just pass in responses and get a prediction. So now we get to the fun part of seeing this work on our local system. I have clicked something, but I'm going to start a new terminal. And now I want us to know about something called virtual environment. So virtual environment is like you having a spare PC. Don't let me say a spare PC now. Let me say a separate Python environment on your what? On your system. So let's say for example now, on your system you have some modules already. Let's say on your system you have sklearn. But the way people work is that the version that you use to save the people file should also be the version that you use to load it. If not, you have an error. You will also see something like that to pop up actually. So instead of you having to have dependency issue and having to like, okay, start a back and forth between loading and all, there's something called what? Virtual environment. So virtual environment is just a way for you to work, make a new Python virtual environment on your system. So I'll just let you guys see one that I have created earlier. Or let me say, to make this okay, I can do something called pip.list. Pip.list will list out all the modules that you have. So this should give me a result anytime soon. So I just want you to see what a virtual environment is like. It's a separate Python engine basically from your normal engine that you have. So you can see these are a list of all the modules I've installed. You can see them. What should I take note of? Let me take note of numpy, for example. You see that here my numpy is 1.24.1. Okay. And you can also see that here my scikit-learn is also 1.21, 1.2.1 basically. So that's that on that. So let me just change to this here. Let me change to my root. Okay. CDC. Okay, I'm on C now. So if I'm going to list everything I have here, you see I have a folder called VENVS. Let me just change into that folder VENVS. So when I have into that folder VENVS, now if I list this, this is a environment that I have created before, Flask Web. But just for you to see how it works, I will create another one, Python M VENV and demo. So when I run this, it will give me, let me just take this bit exactly so we can see this one. So it is being run. So when I run this, a new virtual environment will be created in the current folder that I'm in. And in that new virtual environment, you see like what it means to have a virtual environment. It should not take this one. I don't know why it's taking this one. Maybe because I'm also on air, but let's just wait for this. And if there's any question at the stage that I'm in at the moment, anybody that has a question or anything, you can just drop it for me on the chat or so that I can attend to it while I'm waiting for this to load. But this should be done very, very soon. So things like this actually take time. That's why we can't like have the whole stage at once and we can't keep doing everything from the beginning. You get so I basically do them before time, but just show you how they work and also give you ways for you to be able to implement them yourself. So I'm trying to create a new virtual environment that is called demo. And, it's still taking some time. So it has been created already actually. If I list this now, you see now I have to called demo and called flask web. So that's basically how to create a virtual environment. I won't be going into the demo that I just created. I'll just show you, I'll just go into flask web directly. CD flask web. I'm into it already. You can see that these are the stuff. So for every virtual environment you create, you have to do what? You have to activate it basically, because a virtual environment is like, okay, let's say you have two users on your system, just you can sign out of one user and go into another user. So that's like an high level of what a virtual environment is. So to activate it, I'll just change into the script folder, because that is where everything is, the script folder. If I list everything there, you'll see a list of files, blah, 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 blah. No. So you see a list of files and all. To activate it, I'll just call the activate .ps1. And when it's activated, you see like exactly now it's activated. You can see now I have this flask for the name of that folder in brackets before anything. So this tells me that what anything I'm doing now on Python is no more using the normal Python engine of my system. It is now using the Python engine that is on what Flask Web, basically. So that's what is on another system. You might try to run this and get an error. Something about execution policy is a security feature by Windows, so that you won't be able to run scripts, because scripts are easy way for system to get corrupt or for hackers to get into a system. So Windows makes sure that execution policy is set to what not one. So you are the one that have to what change it yourself, that you want to be what running script yourself. So if in case you get to that error, you can look it up online how to change your execution policy, and you can check it out. That's if you want to do this yourself. So basically, so to just showcase the difference, I'll now do this pip list again. And if you can remember, then I think our numpy was 1.24 point something, and our scikit-learn was also 1.2.1, if I remember correctly. So I want this to list it out now, and you see that there is now a difference between the scikit-learn here, either the numpy or the scikit-learn basically. You can now see that the scikit-learn here is what 1.1.0, and the numpy that is here is 1.23.1. The last one was 1.24. So this engine now is basically different from the previous engine that we've had. So we do this to what? So that every time you want to work on a new project, everything that you need for that project is what? Is everything I want to work on for that project is what separates from the ones you are using for that project. It also helps you to be able to know what, for you to be able to specify versions that worked in the past, so that in case you want to like, yeah, you also see the beauty of this when we are transitioning to a cloud environment later. You see the essence of having all of this in check so that you know what it is you are doing. So it allows your environment to be what? To be different from the previous environment. So with this in place now, I will now run the file, but if I run the file here, it won't work. Let me just, why? Because I'm not in the directory where the file is basically, there's no file like that. So I have to change back to what? The directory where I was working. And to do that, I don't think I can type everything. I'll just come here, copy and paste basically. So this is where I was. Aha, I'm going to copy this and I'll come back here and I'm going to paste this here, and now I'm back in that folder. If I list things that are here now, you can see I have all of my file, the main.py file and all. So I'm going to say python.main.py. That's the basic way to run Python files. Okay, sorry, not Python dot, it's Python and space. This now should give me an error, but I don't want to have an error. I'll just like take it away. That should not be you, that should be y. So Python main.py. So what this does is that on our local system, Flask has a way to what, like get up a server. It has a way for it to act as if you're already on the web, as if you're already on the cloud. You get. So when you run this now, because you know I had said this that what if main, let me just if app the run. So basically if name is equal to main. So this what we mean by this. If you run your Python file this way, this will get true. But if you import this file in another file, this will be false. So therefore your app will not run. So if I run this now, enter, it's running the file. It should come up anytime soon. So in case you have any question, you can start dropping them so I can work and talk about them while this is running. Or this is just running because it's like setting up the engine and all. So and I hope I'm being audible enough. I hope there's no issue with what I am saying, because the last time I think I had people complaining of what I was saying. So if there's no error, I can just continue basically. So as you can see, we're having a lot of blah 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 blah, warning. So in warning, when you see warning is good, it's better than seeing an error. An error means your code is not working, while warning means okay, you are doing something that is maybe not accepted or basically, but your code will run basically. So the first warning we can see, you can remember trying to unpickle pipeline from 1.2.0 when you're using 1.1.0. This might lead to breaking of code, blah, 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 risk. So people work with what? Using the correct version. So because I had saved my pipeline using people 1.1, sorry, not even the people, I think that is the sklearn. So people is also like trying to tell me that the people version is basically the same thing, but this is the difference in sklearn version. You see that the sklearn version is what? 1.2.0. That was what I used to save. Right? The one I'm using in this case is 1.1.0. So it's trying to tell me that there can be an issue, but I've tested this and there was no issue. But basically, when you're moving to a new environment, you should try and make sure that the version you're using on your environment is the same as what you were using to save. So that's basically the error I'm getting, because I also use something called one-not encoder. One-not encoder is the pipeline, is the transformer that was passed into the pipeline. It's also from 1.2. This is also from 1.2, blah, blah, blah. No. But at least we have our code working. So our code is running on this website. This is what is serving as our website. You get? Now I'm going to transition. I'm going to change my screen to the web page. That's this, and share. So I hope you guys can see my screen before I continue. Just help me
Yeah.
confirm if you can see
Yes,
my
we
screen.
can. Yes, we can.
All right, so I'm just going to basically paste these websites into this place, and we'll start playing with it a little. So if I say enter, just like you going to a normal web page, accept. So you can see now, this is when I open the HTML file locally. You see this was shown alongside, but now that I'm on a server, because I'm on a server now, the server understands what it means to have was Python code. It now understands logic. So it is not showing me this text. Why? Because it's not just the browser that is interpreting the HTML file now. There's a server behind it that's also doing some work. That is why on this one, you can see that the text is not here, but the text is here. You get? That's the first thing. And now, to see the code working actually, I'm just going to pick some arbitrary values. Okay, I have a large university. It is fully comprehensive. The research intensity is medium, but the status is A. So it has an academic reputation score of, let's say, 75. The employer reputation score is 67. All these are like features of the data set that we used to train the model. The student score, let's say it has a student score of 70. Let's just give it a very high citation score of 90. International faculty score, let's give it 50 for average, and international student score of 70. So with this now, all our features are what's in. And when we press submit, it is loading just like a normal website. You now see our answer. So the predicted overall score for this is what? 46.78. So the score of the university is what? 46.708%. If I come back, so that's basically everything about the model. This is just like a simplistic model you get, and that it has done its job perfectly. If you want to get another prediction, so let me change this a little. Let me say it is large, it is comprehensive here. The research intensity is at A. Now let me give it low high scores. Let's say this is 90, and now this one should be 80. The faculty score of 75. Citations, it has, let me give it low citations. Let's say 47. Faculty score, let's give it something of 79. And international student score, let's give it 80. So if we submit, you see now that the score has gone higher, is 74. And this is now what we passing the if prediction that is being written here. See that at first when we came, and this is, let me try to showcase this. If I come here and press enter, you see that we don't have anything here basically. If I come here, put a slash and press home, you see that I'm still on the same page. Why? Because I routed that anytime you see just the website or you see a slash home, bring me to this page. If I now come here and try to say predictions, is it not going to give me an error? Why? Because I'm trying to get it with a get method. This is basically what a get method is. Meanwhile, it is a post method. It should raise an error. You see, this method is not allowed. Why? Because I only accepted what post method for this page, for this URL basically. So me trying to get it as a get method, I'm going to get an error. So let me just go back to home, and that's that on our model. And if you come here, let me just change my screen to the web page, sorry, the VS Code. You can now see that what this is our dictionary for the first thing that we put. You see that dictionary, we have classification size large, blah 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 blah. The international, this is a dictionary, and then this is our predictions that we had. This is also our dictionary. These are what the print statement that you had in the code when I was explaining, and this is our prediction. You can also see that we have a what, this is a post prediction method. A get method was used, a get method was used, but we had an error for the what post method trying to get prediction. Get method is not accepted for prediction. But when we went back to home, so this is just like you logging is flask, just trying to log every process that has been done on your web page. So basically with this now, you are done with your I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So with this now, you are done with your local development of, or you get transitioning from just a model to something that can be used online. So this is basically the blueprint. This blueprint can be followed for any model. As long as you have first-hand information of what the model was used on, how the model was trained, and what is saved, you can transition into this. Let's say, okay, you are just the backend. Your front end will also need, your front end will be in constant communication with you that this is what you need. You really want to tell the front end that, okay, these are the columns I need, this is what you need to name this. And with this blueprint, you can basically deploy, you can finish a local deployment of any model you get. So the next stage is taking it to a place, because not everybody can log on to your system from the remote you get. It has to be publicly available on the internet. So the next stage will be moving from our local development system and taking it to a cloud developer where it will be publicly available and anyone can just press the website and go into it. So that will be stage 2, and that will be what we'll be going for in our next live coding session. So that is the end of today's coding session. So is there any question? Is there anything that sounded sketchy or something that needs clarification? Okay, I don't think there is any. So if in the absence of question, contribution, or anything, then I think I can say that's the end of our live coding session for today. And part 2, stage 2, anyone want to call it, is going to be coming up in the next session, and then we'll transition from our local system to a cloud developer. So thank you very much for attending today's session.